Good morning, everyone. Councilman Rasmussen here, coming to you with my update from our July 5th, 2022 Town Council meeting. We had a number of things on the agenda last night, though a lot of it's actually going to be pretty fast stuff. We did have a couple presentations, and so that's kind of mostly what I'll give an update on. The first things first, though, I have to give a big shout out to everybody who made. Obviously, this was July 4th weekend, and there's a lot of people who did a lot of great work to create a lot of wonderful experiences for our town and our community. Obviously, a huge shout out to the July 4th Association. The parade in Clayton this year, the fireworks. People often assume that these are things that the town puts on. It's not. These are things that a group of volunteers from our communities come together. They raise funds. They organize this. They go out. They put out the flags in people's yards. The town sometimes gets credit for these things, which we provide some funding for it, as does the town of Clayton. But really, this is a group of volunteers who do an amazing job putting together some awesome events for our community for July 4th. So huge thank you to the July 4th Association for all the awesome work you did. We certainly help support that from the town side. Our town staff is out there helping out in every way they can. Our police department, the police departments of Smyrna and Clayton, doing a great job, providing support for these events, being there, being available for anybody who needs them. So a huge thank you to everybody that makes a really awesome weekend possible, right? There was music on Friday night downtown in Main Street. We had the parade, we had the fireworks. It was a great weekend, and we had good weather for the whole thing too, which helps. So, as far as overall updates, the town is still moving through the conversion to the Munis system. I've talked about it before. The two milestones coming up are switching over the ledger. So basically the in and out of funding, that's going to happen on July or October 1st, and then ultimately the payroll system on January 1st. So it's a little bit delayed than where we wanted it to be, but still on track to get done for the beginning of next year. Last night we talked a little bit about setting up and doing a couple of movies in the park again this year. The final dates and times and everything haven't been set, but keep an eye out for that. For August and September, we'll try and do some movies in the park for here in Smyrna. The parking lot downtown has gotten another little bit of a delay. Actually, they were out there working yesterday. They're supposed to be starting to put down the top coat on the parking lot this week. The Conservation District, which has caused a number of delays in this project over the time, has some additional things that they want us to do for the stormwater management. So it's caused a little bit more delay because of getting to get new materials and change some design pieces for them. But still moving forward, so we should have a nice new parking lot. And I mentioned it before, the water tower on the north side of town. So bidding is open for that. That is going to be a big major capital project to allow us to continue to expand water infrastructure to the northern part of town. We should start seeing bids for that coming in pretty soon, and hopefully have a bid and the ability to move forward on that later on this year. Another update. So for folks, there is still a lot of work going on, a lot of things to be done, but the Duck Creek Regional Library Association was able to secure some additional funding from the state this year that should get them up to the almost $18 million to build the new Duck Creek Regional Library. That will be downtown in Smyrna. There's still some work around the operational funding that needs to happen, but the state's additional resources that they've allocated for this project mean that hopefully sometime less than a year from now, hopefully beginning of 2023, we see a groundbreaking for a new, modern, awesome regional library right here in downtown Smyrna. So as that moves forward, you'll probably hear me talk more about it, because there's going to be a couple of things that come up that involve folks here in town, and there'll be some public community outreach that they're going to need to be doing around those. So, but nice to have a little bit more money flowing into our town. Those are the big updates from the agenda last night. I'm going to cover the agenda items and then I'll talk about the presentation. So we had a couple of appointments. An appointment as a non-voting student member for the Planning and Zoning Commission. So a young lady named Sandy Holt. She's I guess been engaged in a number of things there at the high school and expressed some interest in this. Always neat to see young people want to be engaged and learn a little bit more and participate in some of our town government, especially in planning and zoning, where the decisions that are made there can often have an impact for a generation. And so having a young voice as part of that, I think, is pretty cool. And so, best of luck to her. Fred Shaber got placed on the Smyrna Slum Clearance and Redevelopment Authority, and a new member of the Parks and Rec Committee, Lindsay Alexic. I probably brutalized that last name. So those are some basic appointments. We also last night put together a town manager selection committee. So many of you may have heard this. Our town manager is going to be leaving at the end of August. Andrew has accepted a position with the National Public Employee Labor Relations Board, and is going to be transitioning out. So we have to do a search for a new town manager. There's a committee of us. It's 3 members of council and 3 community members that are going to be initiating that process, probably as soon as possible. It will involve, putting together and sending out a job description, reviewing resumes, interviewing candidates. Ultimately, the town council decides who to hire for that job. So the selection committee basically will bring forward a small group of candidates that we feel are the best candidates to the town council, who will conduct the final interviews and ultimately make a decision. It will take a while. Andrew will be on through the end of August with us. It will likely be a month or 2 after that until we have a town manager in place. But we need to get that process moving as quickly as we can. We had a couple of fact-finding resolutions to set fact-finding hearings around annexing some property into town. It's properties on the north side of town that have been in our annexation plan for a very long time, and there's now interest from the property owners in getting them annexed into this community. So that's stuff that's moving forward. We did have a neat kind of beginning of a conversation to provide some direction to the Planning and Zoning Commission around what are often called accessory dwelling units. Folks have probably seen these around the country. The idea of putting some people call them like granny pods. The idea of converting a non-traditional part of a house into an RDU, residential development unit, so like a little apartment. And sometimes it may involve even actually an accessory structure. So they sell these now where you can put a granny pod in your backyard and have a place to let people continue to live on your property. There's a lot of questions about how you do this well to make sure that you're not creating issues with people creating rental properties. You need to make sure that there's some amount of owner-occupied thing to this. It's a big thing that AARP has been pushing more communities to try and do, to provide more options for seniors to age in place or live with their families rather than need assisted living as we get a larger aging population in this community or in this country. So we had an initial conversation. We're going to come back to it. Everyone the town staff put together a wonderful overview of what other communities have done and shared some information with us. I think we're going to come back together after everyone has a chance to digest this and see, are there things we'd like to see? Are there things we definitely don't want to see as part of the recommendation? And then give some guidance to the Planning and Zoning Commission to help them move forward with what council would like to see created for this. So kind of cool. I'm in support of it. I think it's neat to provide more options. It obviously has to be done well within the boundaries of the zoning districts, and maybe it makes places in some parts of the community and it doesn't in others. I think that there's a lot of questions, but I'd like to see more options to provide more affordable housing for families, for seniors, and a way to create a little bit more, I think, livable community. for all of us. So we'll see more about that. All right, the presentations. So the first one, the Kent Economic Partnership, Linda Parkowski, gave an update on the work that they've been doing. This is something that Linda does every year. The town of Smyrna supports the Kent Economic Partnership. I think we give about $20,000 or $25,000 to them every year as to help fund the efforts to attract larger businesses to our communities. Specifically, Linda focuses on logistics, warehousing, medium to large manufacturing is where most of her time is spent. The Duck Creek Business Campus is a big piece of that. She has worked with a number of the potential and current tenants to attract them to this community. She gets requests from all over the country from site selectors looking for potential locations for manufacturing, warehousing, logistics locations. And she serves as a bit of an intermediary to the town, saying, hey, you guys have got some place. We think that this might be a good fit. I'm going to go out and try and set up the meetings and do the legwork to try and attract those. So far, her work has helped attract the 70,000 square foot building that's out there right now is being utilized by Procter & Gamble. They're interested in an additional building another 130,000 square foot building to also add to what they're doing. And still we cannot tell you who because of privacy requirements, but a 334,000 square foot warehouse distribution center that will be coming to that business park, potentially 600 plus jobs. That's a lot. It's a thing that having KEP do as part of their support for our town and our investment in KEP, I think is a strong investment on our part. And Linda was sort of going over exactly what they do, how they do it, who they talk to, letting the town kind of see how our money is being spent. The other big presentation from last night was a presentation of the 2023 to 2025 water, sewer, electric rate study. This guy. So every 3 years or so, the town should and does conduct a rate study. What this does is it looks at what we charge for our water, sewer, and electric versus what it costs us to provide those services. And we want to make sure that what we are charging is in line with what our costs actually are. Obviously, costs go up. And so we try and make sure that our rates are set in such a way that they allow us to continue to cover our costs every year, as well as plan for the future needs of those systems, right? If you have to replace water mains, you have to replace sewer mains, you have to replace and do maintenance on electric substations. Those are all massive expenses. I mean, they can be in the millions of dollars to do those pieces. If we don't plan for those things, then we have to borrow money should there be an emergency or something happen that is not planned for, which is either we borrow money from ourselves, from the general fund, or we have to go out and actually raise money to do large capital projects. I talked recently about us doing a $10 million bond. Some of that is because we don't have the funds sitting in a bank account to be able to do the water and sewer and electric work that we need to do in some of these different areas. Ideally, our water, sewer, and electric fund themselves every year, as well as allow us to put money into a reserve fund for each one of those areas, that when we have a large capital expense, we have the funds necessary to go out and do that work. But that takes planning. Smart Utility Management is a company that the town has used. They go in, this is what they do. They go in and analyze, they look at our current rates, they look at exactly what it costs for us to provide those services, and then they put together what is called a rate study. This is a lot here, and I'm not going to try and cover all of it by any means. The big takeaways from this is that right now, our current electric rates are doing a good job of covering what our costs are associated with them. And in fact, over the course of the next 3 years, those rates will actually see a slight reduction. That doesn't mean that the bills go down, because our rate is basically how much we charge on top of what we pay for the power that we have to buy. But it means that the town's take over the course of the next 3 years is actually going to go down by about 1.4%, or about $230,000 per year. Our rates are actually pretty much where they need to be, is what that came out to be. Water is an area where we have made some significant changes. Our water rates were way under what our costs of service were for a very long time, which meant we were losing money off providing water services. Those have been brought up over the course of the last 3 years, so they're actually pretty close to where they need to be, and we won't have to do much in the way of water rate changes. Our sewer rates are still an area where our cost of providing service is significantly higher than what we actually charge for it. So we are going to have to see some increases in our sewer rates, which is about 2% per year, which equates to about $63,000 a year total that the town will see come in additional for that. Now that $63,000 is spread out over 13,000 people in the community, so you can imagine that it plays out, in different ways for different households. The assumptions that go into this, we assume every year that the number of people we provide services are going to grow a little bit. We also assume that our expenses are going to continue to go up, as they do every year. Right now, we plan for about 3% per year increase for expenses. Obviously, people are following inflation. Inflation is very high right now. However, averaged out over 3 years, it will likely come back into an area where it's expected to be. So we plan for at least 3% growth in our expenses over those time periods. And then we plan for the idea that each one of these individual systems is going to return about 4% to its fund. Basically, that they should make about 4% that we can put into savings to plan for those large capital expenses, those improvements that we know are going to come down the pipe eventually. So we make those assumptions. As we've also mentioned, each one of these actually helps fund our general fund in some ways. So right now we put about $1.5 million from our water, sewer, and electric collection every year into the general fund. What that means is that our general fund, which is mostly taxes and fees, we can keep our taxes lower by utilizing some of the funding, some of the income from our water and sewer and electric to offset taxes. There's a legitimate debate about whether or not that's a good idea or not. It is one of the most common models for small municipalities who are their own utility providers. So good or bad, electric, water, and sewer, each one of them are going to continue to chip in about $1.5 million between the three of them. So that's about $1 million from electric and about $500,000 from water and sewer to help continue to fund the general fund pieces. Those are the assumptions that we talked with Smart Utility Management to go forward with, and then they came up with a rate design and some potential changes that we will see it phased in over the course of the next 3 years. Some of the things that I think will actually be that most people will end up noticing right now. So people might see a slight decrease. Some people will see a slight decrease in their electric rate. That is going to be something that phases in. But there are also some of our fixed costs for providing service, right? Whether you turn on any power in your house or you turn on any water in your house, there is a cost to the town monthly in order to have a meter and to have service to your facility, to your street, basically. The way that water has been done over the years is we would see this where you have this, like, everyone has to pay for 3,000 gallons. Whether you use 1 gallon or 2,999 gallons, you pay the same amount. That has been because we don't have a water service or a user fee, a utility fee. We're going to move to a model where we actually have a user fee, which everybody pays regardless of how much you use, and then you will see a charge per your consumption. the folks on the lower end aren't going to see any change in their bill. We've made it so that you have, or shouldn't see any change in your bill. There's always an outlier, but we've made it so that those first 3,000 gallons really match into what it is that you'll be paying for your user fee regardless. The larger users, obviously, you pay more. For every 1,000 gallons, there's an additional fee, and we'll see those some changes to sort of what that looks like. We use these blocks right now where, maybe the first 3,000 to 10,000 is this rate, and 10,000 to 20,000 is this rate. We're going to move to a much simpler, it's this much cost per 1,000 gallons across the board. It simplifies our rates. It makes it a little bit more predictable, easier to manage. Most people don't use that much water or sewers, so you will see very little impact from this. But on our end, from the town side, it provides a lot more consistency and ease of being able to actually manage and plan for these pieces. There's a lot of details. We have examples of what it looks like, how many users are in each area. In the end, the town adopted this rate study. It is going to be implemented over the course of the next 3 years, so these things phase in over time. One of the more significant changes are the folks who have yard meters. Right now, yard meters cost, you pay a fee to have a yard meter, but it's a one-time fee. The recommendation is to have yard meters pretty much set up like normal meters, just not having sewer attached to them. So there will be phased in over time a meter fee, basically a user fee for those locations. So some folks with yard meters, you might see that as probably the biggest change on your bill, because you'll start to see a new fee attached to it. And then you will have just the regular amount you pay for water associated with it. So this should get posted up on the town website. It's been talked about through the utility committee a number of times. The town adopted this last night, which means that at the beginning of next year, these will be the assumptions and rates used to set all of our budget. And ultimately, you will start to see these things impacted slowly over the course of the next 3 years. The idea is that nobody ever sees anything more than a 10% change in the course of any given year, whether that's up or down, because that helps level it out. We don't want to implement everything all at once and then have confusion about why there was such a large change. Hey, I didn't have this fee last month and now I have this. But this allows us to help phase it in and make it a little bit easier for people to see and understand how it's impacting them. Those are the big things from last night. So new water rate study adopted, a couple of new appointments, and a nice little presentation from Linda Parkowski for KEP. Other than that, everything looks to be pretty normal. Summertime, I hope everybody is having a good time out there. We've had, in my opinion, very, very nice weather so far for our summer. A lot of folks are on vacations. Council continues to meet throughout the summer, so our next meeting will be on July 18th. And obviously there'll be a lot of work coming for those of us who are going to be doing the town manager selection committee. There's a bunch of work that we need to get pushing on real quickly here, but we soldier on even in the heat of the summer. So hope everyone is well. Again, thanks everyone. Saw lots of people out at the events this weekend. It was great to see many, many faces. I hope everyone is well. Enjoy your summer, and I'll be back in touch after the next meeting. Thanks.